Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something really fascinating. We are mapping out the real-time global media coverage of a massive geopolitical escalation, and we're doing it entirely through the lens of a YouTube newsfeed during a major crisis. It's actually incredibly revealing to see how information, panic, and academic analysis all collide in one digital space the moment the world is turned upside down. So let's explore exactly how this unfolds together. All right, let's jump right into this specific snapshot in time. Look at this stark date, March 2nd, 2026. This anchors our entire timeline today. When you're looking at a digital feed from this exact day, you aren't just scrolling through a random assortment of thumbnails, right? You are actually looking at a real-time historical archive. Every single headline, every thumbnail, and every commentator is reacting to a world that has just dramatically shifted overnight.
Now here is the absolute crux of it all, the central inciting incident. This quote is pulled straight from the description of a current affairs broadcast, and it acts as the literal shockwave for everything we're about to unpack. The killing of Ayatollah Khamenei by US and Israeli forces is the catalyst. And notice the phrasing there. The Middle East has erupted. It's definitive, it's terrifying, and it instantly sets the tone for the entire global media apparatus. The moment this happens, the algorithm completely pivots to cover the fallout.
So how does the media handle this immediate chaos? Well, networks instantly scramble to bring in the diplomatic heavyweights. Take a current affair, for example. They immediately grab Arthur Sinodinos, the former Australian ambassador to the US. It's fascinating because this is exactly how the media ecosystem tries to find its footing in the early hours of a crisis. They desperately need these voices of authority to bring some objective analysis to a rapidly developing situation. It's a real-time attempt to find grounding when the news cycle is moving at the speed of light. Moving into our first section. Regional military eruption, and the immediate Middle East fallout. And man, looking at how this builds outward, you instantly see the chaotic, rapid-fire nature of this conflict. Just look at the feed. It's absolutely flooded with overlapping headlines. You've got 11 Alive reporting the U.S. is escalating strikes on Iran, right alongside ILTV Israel News shouting that the U.S. is hammering Iran, Hezbollah is under fire, and Israel is prepping its next move. This isn't just one isolated event. It is a massive, multi-front eruption. We're seeing concurrent military flashpoints being updated by the minute, pushing this narrative of intense, widespread regional warfare right to your screen. Now, what's really wild here is the stark contrast in media framing. A crisis of this magnitude gets broadcast in two totally distinct ways at the exact same time. On one side, you have your clinical, objective military updates, just the cold, hard facts of the escalation. But then, right next to it in the feed, you get these highly charged partisan clashes on live television, like this video titled, "Dr. Morandi Destroys Warmonger Journalist." It just goes to show how modern geopolitical events are instantly processed through both traditional reporting and emotionally driven, combative commentary.
All right, on to Section 2, analyzing the escalation through the academic and expert lens.
You know, once those initial shockwaves sort of settle, people don't just want to know what happened, they desperately need to know what happens next. So in comes a wave of high-level commentators to ask the critical questions. Take Robert Pape, featured over on the World Podcast. The broadcast is literally titled, "Is the War About to Escalate?" Think about that for a second. We're barely 23 hours into the news cycle, and the immediate question isn't about de-escalation, it's an assessment of the situation's immense fragility. The media is just directly reflecting the public's anxiety about where the absolute worst is yet to come. At the exact same time, you see platforms leaning heavily on prominent international relations scholars. John Mearsheimer is brought onto Glenn Deason's broadcast to zoom out and really contextualize things. And the title of that video says it all, Dissecting the Threat of All-Out War in the Middle East. These experts aren't just tracking individual missile strikes anymore. They are mapping out the terrifying potential of an uncontainable, region-wide catastrophe. They're providing that deep, systemic analysis that viewers crave when the headlines just become too overwhelming.
Which brings us to Section 3, global and political ripples, looking way beyond the Middle East.
Because, let's face it, a conflict of this size absolutely refuses to stay regional. You instantly see this massive geopolitical domino effect taking shape. An assassination in the Middle East is immediately getting dissected across completely different spheres. We're talking headlines probing U.S. leadership decisions, analysts drawing lines straight to global geopolitics with Russia, and financial channels sounding the alarm on the global economy. Everything is interconnected, and the media diet totally reflects this instantaneous global entanglement.
A perfect example of this? Look at how international outlets dedicate entire segments to neutrally analyzing the political decisions surrounding the crisis.
Channel 4 News puts out this comprehensive piece titled "The Real Reason Donald Trump Went to War with Iran." It really highlights how foreign policy and domestic leadership are inextricably linked in the media narrative. The focus totally shifts from the battlefield to the strategy room, trying to untangle the why behind the what. And that narrative web just keeps stretching further. Going back to the analysis by scholars like Mearsheimer, we see the conflict's implications extending all the way over to Eastern Europe. The feed neutrally reports on fears of a broader proxy entanglement, with discussions literally titled Trump's War on Russia. It's wild to see how an event in one hemisphere instantly ignites discussions about ongoing tensions in another, painting this picture of a highly delicate, deeply interconnected global standoff. Naturally, all of this global panic instantly slams the financial markets. As global stability starts looking shaky, the economic channels absolutely light up. You've got financial commentators like Andrei Gzik publishing videos warning that China is preparing for gold to hit $38,000. When trust in geopolitical stability drops, safe haven assets skyrocket in the public consciousness. That one number right there perfectly captures the sheer scale of global economic anxiety triggered by the military events we've been tracking.
So after mapping out this entire media ecosystem, from the initial shock of that inciting assassination through the military maneuvers, the academic deep dives, right down to the global economic fallout, we are left looking at a world totally on edge. The digital feed tells a story of a planet bracing for impact. Seeing how rapidly this situation expanded across every single metric of global news in just a matter of hours, we have to ask ourselves, is this the absolute peak of the crisis, or is it just the very beginning of a much larger global fracture? Think about that as you navigate your news feeds today.